Hey, I'm Mark Hunter, the sales hunter. I've got my cup of coffee. And this morning in our countdown to Outbound, who are we talking to? We're talking to Larry Levine. Now, Larry Levine was one of the first people we reached out to when we were looking to scale Outbound. And let me tell you something. His book, Selling from the Heart, outstanding book. Pick it up. Hey, why don't we roll the video and then we'll get Larry in here. How's that sound? Larry, there you are. Good morning.
Mark, what's happening? You know what?
Hey, I've got a cup of coffee. Good. I am glad you have coffee. Hey, you are the master at selling from the heart. If there's one person who is spot on with their message, it is you. What's selling from the heart mean?
Yeah. Boy, you're flipping that one on me, Hunter. So that's really good. I feel like I'm on my own podcast. That's kind of exciting. No, but selling from the heart to me means you bring the best version of yourself. You don't hide. You bring your true version to the forefront. You speak with sincerity. You bring substance to the forefront. You care about your clients. You care about the outcomes, and you truly give a rip.
Yeah, and you talk a lot about authenticity. In fact, you've got a tagline: "No empty suits." And I tell you what, I love the line. I love the line "No empty suits" because you and I both know there are salespeople out there who they are really truly they are truly an empty suit, or the people who have commission breath. And again, wow,
it's I'm a big believer, and I've said it often and often and over. Authenticity is a lifestyle; it's not a light switch. I think we are all authentic human beings. We have decisions, we have choices we make. It's not something you wake up one day, Mark, and say, "Hey, you know what? I think I'm going to try authenticity today. And if it works, great. And if it doesn't work, I'll remove it." No, it doesn't work that way. But I use the whole phrase, "no empty suits." It's not to disrespect the sales world, none whatsoever. It's to get them to think. It's to truly get them to think. What are you bringing to the forefront? And there's 3 E's I live by. It's engage, educate, and excite. And if you're not doing those 3 things,
that was a drop the mic moment. Do those 3 E's again.
Engage, educate, and excite. And I'm going to tell you, if you're not doing those 3 things with your clients, with your prospects, out in the marketplace, out in the community as a sales professional, they're going to view you as being empty. You're not bringing anything to the table. Zero.
That truly is a drop the mic moment. And hey, is that some of the stuff that you're going to be talking about at Outbound this year?
100%. Yeah, and I'm even going to tie this in to relationships. And I cannot go a day without hearing from sales teams, sales professionals, and sales leaders that relationships mean a lot to them. Because we all know without clients, it's very difficult to conduct business and have a profitable business. But what are you doing with those relationships? How are you digging in? I'm really going to bring this to the forefront at Outbound.
Yeah. And of course, Outbound, June 15th through the 18th, virtual, June 13th through the 18th. And you're going to be there. You're going to be you're on the main stage this year too, right?
I'm completely honored, humbled. It's a wow moment for me. So thank you.
Well, I tell you what, we're excited to have you there and do hope people pick up tickets. Your code, if people want to save $100, is what?
It's Heart 100. Go figure, right?
Heart 100. Yeah, you're right. Go figure on that one. But hey,
hey, Mark, it could have been No Empty Suits 100, right?
And that's a little bit of a negative connotation.
I know.
We'll just stick with Heart 100. Hey, I want to go back for a bit because you talk about relationships. And I remember the first time we met, I was out in the Southern Cal area and we met for lunch. Remember that?
Oh, yeah, gosh. Yes, I do.
Yeah. And that was the first time we sat down and we talked and we even shot a couple of videos. And from that point, our relationship has just grown and grown and grown. And we've been able to share the stage at several events. And I'm always so blown away by the authenticity that you bring to conversations off the stage. Because again, it's easy to, you were talking about this earlier. you don't just flip the switch to be authentic. You have to be at 24/7, and you truly do live it 24/7. But how does that help salespeople?
I think it helps in it. I'll look at it in three ways, Mark. Is we live in this world. I'll just say we live in this post-trust sales world. If we look at trust, and you talk a lot about it, Mark, trust is something that is earned, but it's easily broken. And we have to look at how to overcome the lack of trust, because people just don't trust salespeople. They're skeptical about everything we have to say, and they think we're full of you know what. So what do? You flip it on its head. You bring your authentic self to the forefront.
Okay, but does that translate into more sales? I believe 100%, but I'm being a skeptic because I want you to drive this point home for the audience.
I believe it does, and it doesn't happen overnight. And see, here's the myth that I'd like to break. And when I was in sales, in fact, I'm still am. I think we're all in sales. Is I was always in it for the long run. Too many have short-sighted vision, and all they're after is the sale at that moment, in that place and time. And wow. we look at our customers or clients, however you want to view them, and we look at them as objects. It's a means to an end.
I love what you're saying there, because I mean, it's one of the concepts. I got fired from my first 2 sales jobs, and I talk about it in my book, A Mind for Sales, because I did view customers as objects. In fact, I write in the book that I viewed them as bowling pins. They were just to be knocked down and the money taken. But you really talk about the long game. And that's what I see, that top performing salespeople, not the ones who are in the President's Club for 1 year, but year in, year out. They play the long game, and they're authentic.
Well, we can't lose sight of the short part of this. I'm totally in line that we have to hit our numbers in a month. We have to hit our numbers in a quarter, but we have to consistently do non-negotiable things every single day to help us get there. But what I remember, this goes back decades ago, one of my very first mentors taught me. They go, you have to consistently do the right things every single day, and you have to look at things short term, medium term, and long term, and you need to learn how to juggle all 3 of those. But all too often in sales, and I write about it in Selling from the Heart, Mark, is unfortunately many people in sales are consistently inconsistent with every facet of what they do.
Yeah, because all they're doing is they're just chasing the sale. They are just chasing the sale. And that's, one of the things I always look for is, what's the percent of business you're getting by way of repeat and by way of referral? And if that's not on a trend line upward over a long period of time, something's wrong with what you're doing.
Yeah, one of the things, and I poured myself into my clients. I literally poured my energy into my clients. That's actually what fueled my new business. And I remember getting the disagreements with sales managers. And then when I became partners in the company I was at, they're going, you're spending way too much time, Larry, with your customers. And I said, no, I'm not, because the more that I invested in them, the more I was able to collect from them.
Okay, so now
they would introduce me to.
Yeah, you hit on something there, because again, a lot of sales managers push back on salespeople. You got to spend less time with customers so you can see more customers. What's the advice you would tell to a salesperson who needs to confront their sales manager and say, hey, I need to be spending more time with my customers?
You got to be willing to have uncomfortable conversations. And when I say uncomfortable conversations, Mark, you have to, as a sales professional, you have to be able to stand up for what you believe is right. I'm not here to disrespect or anything like that, but I would encourage salespeople out there, when you're in those situations, why don't you ask your sales manager to ride along with you for a while and hang out with you and see the relationships that you're truly building, and encourage them to build those same relationships. I saw all too often the reason why most sales managers, and I had many dysfunctional sales managers in my career, But the minute that they saw the relationships that I had and what I was working on and how I was interacting with my customers, it soon became a moot point.
You know, the interesting thing is because there's a lot of sales managers that are nothing more than spreadsheet jockeys. You know, they manage the business by way of the numbers.
Yeah.
And so fatal, so fatal. But what's interesting, think about this for a moment. This is what I see. It is very difficult for a salesperson to run counter to a sales manager. It is more likely that the salesperson winds up adopting the style of the sales manager, just like a parent-child relationship. I mean, I see that happening so often where the child becomes a lot like the parent. They don't want to, but they end up doing it. So it is a fight. But now let's take this a step further, because relationships do wind up creating more business. And I think it creates more business profitably at a higher profit because the customer sees more value. But what are some other ways well, let's jump back to the book, Selling from the Heart. What are some other ways that selling from the heart helps me as a salesperson?
I think first and foremost, and this is why I wrote the book, Mark, the way I did, is I'm a firm believer that the inner work that we do as sales professionals fuels the outer success we have. I'll repeat it, the inner work that we do, and that's the inner work on our heart, our mind, and our body. If we can get those in alignment, it fuels the outer success. Why do I say this? Sales is a tough gig. Let's just get it out on the carpet. It's not for the weak at heart. It's a tough profession. I call it a full contact sport. You're going to get knocked down and you got to pick yourself right back up again. And you got to learn how to manage and motivate and discipline yourself. But unfortunately, and it's why I wrote the book the way I did, is I looked back on my almost 30 years in sales, and there wasn't one time, and I'm literally saying this, there wasn't one time that I had any sales manager say in the teams I was involved in, hey, guess what? For the next week, for the next 2 weeks, we're going to be working on ourselves. We're going to work on our heart, our mind, our body. Oh my gosh, I never saw that, but we all deal with it. Sales professionals out there, if they're open and they're honest with themselves, Mark, they have issues, right? They have issues they want to talk about, and they need somebody to talk about it. But it's when your inner self's out of alignment, I promise you this, it plays havoc with what you do out in the marketplace. Mark my word, I've lived through it.
Do you think the pandemic has brought this out even more?
Yes.
The need to be selling from the heart?
Yes. 100%. Yes. It was interesting. I got into a conversation recently with an enterprise sales rep of a very well-known global company. And we were talking because this person happens to live in my marketplace in Los Angeles. And I asked him, I said, what are the three things you all talk about on your enterprise sales team right now that you get in deep discussions, whether it's a phone discussion, a Zoom, text, doesn't really matter. What is it? We got to the first two and then we didn't talk past that, because the two things they talk about the most is their willingness and how they want to be coached. And the second thing, which was, I believe, the most critical, is mental health. Think about that for a moment. These are high-earning enterprise salespeople, and that's what they're speaking about right now internally amongst themselves. This is why I believe selling from the heart has had a tremendous impact to the sales world during COVID.
I totally agree with you, because I think COVID has ripped the Band-Aid off of so many things. And I talk a lot about authenticity and transparency is more important. Remember when we first went into lockdown, went into work from home, and people were absolutely paranoid that they had to make sure the dogs were quiet, the kids were quiet. Now you're on a call with somebody, the dog is barking. It's more natural. And I think people want to do business with authentic, but that mental health thing, even for enterprise people, because they're up in the top pay structure. I mean, they're making some serious coin.
Serious coin. For
them to sit there and say mental health, what does that tell you about the street level salesperson? Whoa.
It's I fully believe, Mark, this is the time that sales leaders need to pour themselves into their sales teams, and they have to listen. They really have to listen. What's been really exciting is to see how many sales leaders out there are openly embracing reading Selling from the Heart and having me work with their teams to bring heart to the forefront. To me, we all have a secret sauce. My secret sauce is I have the ability to dig in and make people feel comfortable. And I believe in my heart that I bring things to the forefront and I talk about things that many people think about, but are uncomfortable or unwilling to talk about. Think about that for a second.
Yeah. Does that mean when we get to Outbound, you're going to have a couch on the stage and you invite people to lay on the couch? I'm just saying.
No, but I bring this up for a reason is I don't have a PhD behind me. I don't have any fancy acronyms behind me. But I'm a practitioner. I'm deeply connected to this message because it had a profound impact on my career. And I'm willing to talk about it. And I think it needs to be brought out into the open. Is we always coach and work with salespeople to skill set, but we don't do enough around the soft skills, right? And in a Mind for Sales, you talk a lot about the mindset and you talk a lot about skill set. And I layer in heart set to this.
Yeah.
Because I think it just sounds right. It's the perfect triangle of heart set, skill set, and mindset. And we really need to become cognizant of heart set in sales now. To me, that's how you truly connect with people. If you really want to connect to them, get to the heart of what matters. Get to what makes them tick. Be radically transparent and don't hold back. My opinion.
I love that. And that's one of the things that makes Outbound so good because it's not just talking about the process. And it's so easy for us to get caught up in the process of selling. What are the steps? But it really is about making sure you got your act together, your mental game together. And that's such a key part. And that's what I know when people come to Outbound, you've been there you've been there. And the level of engagement from the audience in meals and just out and about and so forth. I mean, it is a real community of people. And I think this year, more than ever, because of the pandemic, it's really going to be critical. Yeah.
I've always said, sales professionals invest in themselves. In Outbound, you keyed on. I want to key on a word. You talked about community, and I think sales professionals out there are in a tight knit community. They build community with their clients. They build community out in the marketplace. And I think especially this year, more so than ever, Outbound's the right event at the right time to help us kickstart because, sales is a great profession. When we don't sell things, Mark, we don't move money through the economy. And money needs to be moved through the economy. And if we don't sell things, what happens?
I can't agree. I mean, I agree with you 10,000% because we are the genesis of everything. If you think about it, the economy is driven by business. Business is driven by sales. Sales is driven by prospecting. Prospecting is driven by relationships.
Yeah.
And it is a food chain. But here's something interesting. People probably don't know this about you. You came out of a very difficult sales environment. Tell the audience what you did before really doing what you do, because you cut your chops on, I think, one of the two most difficult industries out there.
I sold copiers my whole entire life in the Los Angeles marketplace. And, you can't say you've seen it all, but let me tell you, Mark, I was on more dysfunctional sales teams with more dysfunctional managers than I care to shake a stick at. I always say, with all due respect, it was a channel full of broken promises and busted dreams. I saw high turnover. I saw manipulation at its finest. And I said, hey, you know what? If I'm going to stand out in the sea of just complete lunacy, I got to do something differently. And here's what I'd like to encourage salespeople out there to really think about and key in on this for a moment. Your customers or clients, depending on how you refer to them, They're the key to your growth. You got to be willing to dig in and ask them. And all I did was ask my customers deep, meaningful questions on how they wanted to be served and what did they expect. And I just lived to it. Not many salespeople are willing to do that. This stuff's not rocket science. It's truly not rocket science. But I grew up in a highly dysfunctional, competitive, dog-eat-dog world. And I didn't survive in it for almost 30 years by doing the same thing everybody else did. I was just willing to stick out and rise above all the sea of empty suits.
I love what you say, because the value of being successful in sales is when everybody's doing yin, you're doing yang. You are doing the opposite. Yeah. So, hey, okay. So Outbound's coming up in June 15th through the 18th. We have the virtual tickets that you can get. The code for you is what?
Heart 100, HEART, Heart 100.
Heart 100. Selling from the heart. I'll tell you what, Larry, where can people get in touch with you if they, besides Outbound, you're going to be physically at Outbound, but where are you found on the World Wide Web?
You can find me all over LinkedIn. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. If you want to find out about the movement that we're building at Selling from the Heart, you can go to sellingfromtheheart.net. And if you want to find out anything about Selling from the Heart, you can go to sellingfromtheheart.net/book and find out everything you want about Selling from the Heart in book format, Mark.
And I highly recommend the book. Talking to Larry Levine, one of the people who will be speaking at Outbound on the main stage and doing additional sessions. Larry, it's always great. Hey, audience, stick around because we've got a little treat for you after the video.
Hey, thanks, Mark.
Hey, that was a great conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, that was good. We get it. That could have gone on for a while, Mark.
Oh, man, we could have run with that because, again, I still remember when you and I were talking about your book a couple of years ago, and I said, "Hey, you got to ride that horse. You got to ride with it." And I'm so glad you have, because boy, the impact you've had has been tremendous. It's huge.
It's I pinch myself, and you've played a big part in this, and I mean, I love you as a friend. You've been a mentor to me along the way. I didn't realize the impact that I would have with Selling from the Heart. Sometimes I still go, is this actually really real? Because when I wrote the book, I had no idea what to expect, none whatsoever, because it was my first rodeo with this.
Well,
it wasn't my fifth book. It wasn't my third book. It was my first book. And you had a big part to play in this. And, you and I have had some deep conversations about this, because I think it was the day after the book had launched. You actually called me on my cell phone and you said, "Hey, have you seen where your book sales are at?" And I said, "No, I really haven't paid attention to it. What are you doing, right? What's the secret?" And I said, "Hey, listen, I had no PR. I had no marketing, no nothing. I just built a highly engaged network around the message around Selling from the Heart. And I just asked for help along the way. That's all I did."
I love it. You're being authentic. You're being transparent. You truly do sell from the heart. So, hey, great. After the show. I'm going to see you. I'm going to see you in a few weeks, right?
Yeah, you are.
Yeah.
I can't wait. We're going to have a blast.
We will. We will have fun. Who knows what other things will come up at Outbound?
I have no idea what will happen. It's spur of the moment stuff.
Hey, thanks for being on the countdown to Outbound.
I appreciate it. You're my pleasure, Mark.